You skipped it, you dissed it, you said it's a bore. But what if that film's got a little bit more? What if I don't like it? What if it's bad? What if it's awkward or lazy or sad? But what if it's genius, a total surprise? What if it's gold when I open my eyes? We're watching the films you love to avoid. Now sit down and deal with your cinephile void. What if I don't like it? Let's give it a spin. You might hate it. Unload it. Let's dive right in.
Everyone has that one movie that they feel like they're supposed to love. And for a lot of people, that's Pulp Fiction. It's the kind of film that people don't just recommend. They assume you've already seen it. And if you haven't, there's an unspoken expectation that once you do, you'll understand why it's considered one of the greatest films ever made. But that's not how movies work. No matter how influential a film is, every first watch is still personal. Some people fall in love with Pulp Fiction because of its razor-sharp dialogue, its unforgettable characters, its fearless storytelling. Others find its violence overwhelming, its structure frustrating, or its willingness to linger on conversations and uncomfortable moments more exhausting than entertaining. And neither means you're watching it wrong. Because part of what made Pulp Fiction so exciting in 1994 was that audiences were encountering a filmmaker who seemed to be speaking a language they hadn't heard before. The genre references, the fractured structure, the sudden shift in tone, the way it treated pop culture as part of the story itself all felt fresh because audiences hadn't seen these elements combined this way before, really. But watching it for the first time today is a very different experience. You're not seeing the movie that introduced those ideas. You're seeing the movie that helped make a bunch of ideas that you're already familiar with. I mean, the references still work, the filmmaking is still impressive, but the surprise can be harder to recapture when you've already spent decades watching the movies and television shows and filmmakers that borrowed from it. It's kind of like the difference between hearing the first song from a band that changed the way people made music the moment it happened, and then growing up much later and hearing that exact same song after everyone has spent 30 years copying it and it's been in television commercials. You can recognize the influence without feeling the revolution. And that's one of the most fascinating things about movies that become cultural landmarks. We often confuse influence with universality. I mean, a film can reshape cinema without having to become everyone's favorite. It can be expertly made, it can be historically important, and it can be deeply admired while still leaving someone emotionally cold. Those aren't contradictions. They're what makes criticism interesting. And so this is not about deciding whether Pulp Fiction deserves its place in film history. Its influence and its significance are well established. The more interesting question is, why do some people watch Pulp Fiction and see one of the greatest films ever made, while others watch it and wonder, what was everyone else seeing? Welcome to the episode, guys. We are here to talk about a film that I don't think anyone is going to argue really hard isn't a well-loved film. You might see it in almost 1 out of 4 Letterboxd top 4s. We're going to talk about Pulp Fiction with a good friend of mine, actress, filmmaker, writer, all-around artist, Lindsey Deland. Thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Totally. This was a bit of an out-of-the-blue one. It isn't on my big list of films to cover, but I feel like it should have been. And so when you pulled it out of a hat, I was like, oh, this is a good one to talk about.
It's been on my list for a while, but I've been so hesitant to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, this is the time. Now is the time to see it.
This whole podcast exists to push people that extra one step into watching what usually turns out to be a good film. Although we do not have a perfect track record. Sometimes we still manage to pick a stinker, but less often than that. Of course, before we get into that kind of stuff, we're going to talk to you about who you are as an artist and a filmmaker so that our audience can get to know you a little bit better. And I think let's start with, how did you get involved in making films? Like, what was that impetus for you?
So, for the longest time, I actually wasn't involved in films. I was a stage actress for probably over 10 years.
That's like
I
film
started.
curious. You're
Yeah.
influenced.
Like, I always loved watching movies as a kid. I always like, "Ooh, maybe I can be in them someday," but I never really imagined it actually being a reality until probably 3, 4 years ago. I hadn't even done a film, and now it's become such, like, a critical part of my life and my career, and it makes me so happy, like, just being on a film set makes me, like, all giddy and like, "Ooh, I'm on a film set," and I haven't really done as much stage stuff now. Now I've kinda made more of the switch over to the film industry, and I haven't really regretted it at all, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah, I definitely think if you like being on a film set, that's great because they always joke that film is a lot of hurry up and wait. So you're going to sit on that film set for a while, but it is always super fun to be on a film set and get to see all the stuff that's going on. I find it hard to make live theater schedules and filmmaking schedules coincide with one
Yeah.
another because of the rehearsal time needed to get a production on its legs and then the amount of time you're actually doing the show. It's usually like if you're doing live theater, I mean, your experience, like it's the whole month and some extra, right?
Sometimes it'd be, like, almost half a year because you would have auditions at the start of the year, and then rehearsals for 3 months straight, like, 3 times a week, and then the show would go on a run for 2, 3 weeks. Because I did basically community theater, like,
Mm.
once or twice a year for, like, 10 years of my life. So, it was a huge, huge commitment every time, and I loved it, but I didn't even think film was a possibility because I hadn't really been exposed to much living in Western Mass my whole life, and I wasn't sure because I had always thought like, "Oh, you gotta be in the big cities, you gotta be in, like, New York, you gotta be in LA."
Hmm.
But it wasn't until I met Josh DeForge that I realized just how many local filmmakers there are in the area, and it was an incredible experience working with him. That was my first film ever, and from there, I just got more and more connections and made my way through the industry, like the local industry, and it's been really fun.
I really love that Josh exists in our sphere and in our community because he is absolutely such a lightning rod and such a cheerleader and so talented in his own right. And yet he is so there to help everyone else. I've seen a lot of people say they want to build the community. They want to see more people making films. And usually what that means is they want to see more people making their films, being in their stories, and they don't ever get that with Josh. He has his own stories and his own films, but he's also there to help, DPPA, whatever acronym you need, head cook, bottle washer. And that's how I feel about film as well. So to see another person just be like, let's freaking do this is wonderful. Of course, if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the Everything Everywhere All at Once episode with Josh who we're talking about, go check that out. It'll show up right when I put that in the editing part of this. And he's a really great guy. So I do remember the first time I met you was through the East Hampton Film Festival because I was doing a Women in Horror thing, and that was your first film. Is that what you're talking about? The first thing you did when you met Josh?
Yes, that was the very first film I ever did, and I was so nervous because I didn't really know that I'd be going up for a panel, let alone like, films. I was like, "Oh, by the way, you're on a panel." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And it was so much fun. We just talked about horror the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool because like, I grew up I'm a huge, like, fangirl. I love going to Comic Cons and watching all the celebrity panels from them, and to think like, "Wow, this is my first film and I get the opportunity to go on a panel just like, the ones I grew up watching," is just like a dream come true.
I really love that aspect of the film festival. It's part of the reason why I host so many of the talkback panels. You can go and see a short film at a film festival. It kind of feels like you're just watching, YouTube. You could also watch that film at home. What makes it tangibly different is you then get to say and talk to the filmmaker, get some sort of perspective around what was going on with the story and find out about how it was made. And you know, that is so fascinating to me. So to get to extend that to everybody who's giving us a film festival is nice. I do have to say, I remember at the end you introduced me to your mom, and I was like, "Huh, that's cool that a mom would come to a thing like that." And then you told me how old you were, and I was like, "Wow!" Because you also wrote that piece. You didn't just star in it and work with Josh on it. You wrote it.
Yeah, I love, like, screenwriting and stuff, and ever since I wrote that, I've been, like, experimenting with more, and I definitely wanna get, a feature film out there. Like I've been working with scripts and stuff, just like seeing what hits, what doesn't, and I've been like cooking some stuff up in the past few months. But also too, like that was my first film festival, and my mom, she's my biggest cheerleader, and so she like comes to like all my stuff, and I love her so much for doing that.
She
And
was so
she's
sweet.
always so supportive, even like she's like she knows I'm not, you know, making a lot of money, but she knows that I'm like happy doing what I love and what I'm passionate about, and she's very supportive and me following my dreams.
Yeah, it's hard to not see when you talk about what you're working on that you really enjoy what you're working on. I remember we were also in that workshop about pitching films and working on scripts, and you were talking to us one about one. I won't divulge the plot because it might be in pre-production. But also that was like really fascinating what you had come up with, and just the way that you felt so comfortable talking in front of a group of people. That confidence is like, oh yeah, this is someone who's really passionate about what they're doing. They're not shy to be like, I want to do this.
No, it was that pitch workshop was so much fun. Like, I honestly had never really done a pitch like that, but it was such a great like area to just try stuff out and see what works and what doesn't work. And it was like a whole crowd of people. Like I didn't expect like so many people in the audience too. And then I thought
Me
afterwards, like, man,
either.
I was like, man, I really hope like no one takes this idea. I was like, I don't think they will, but like I didn't even think of that. In my head, I'm just like, okay, let's just not care what happens and just push through. And I think after that pitch, I felt so much more confident in that project, and I've been pursuing it ever since, and it is currently in pre-production. I won't say anything else, but it's something I'm very passionate about and something I definitely want to pursue in the next 2 years, an actual feature film.
That is wonderful to hear. I'm going to have to tell Alex about that, because that is the whole point of that workshop, was to do literally that, make you more confident in it so that you could continue to flesh it out and then eventually get it made. So like, aha, we done did it. I also did not know that that workshop included an audience. I agreed to work. It's all Alex's idea. He's such a genius. Alex wrote Coherence, which is a really great film, and he did that workshop with us, and I didn't know we were going to have a audience either. So it was kind of fun though, because like that's what a pitch is being confident enough to not get nervous in front of people who aren't just watching you, like they're deciding whether or not you get to do the thing you dream to do. So practicing that is like, damn, that's a fun thing to get to do in a free workshop.
Yeah. It's like, I get anxious, I get nervous, everyone does, but I think ever since I was a kid, I've always had this like extroverted like ability to just push my fear aside and just send it, even if I embarrass myself, because I have plenty of times, but I just like fully send it. I'm not afraid to like show my real self, and a lot of times that's too much for people. But then I
Mm.
say, fuck you, I don't care. This is the real me. You're gonna deal with it and you're gonna like it. A lot of
Yeah.
guys don't like that.
A lot of people don't like that. Yeah, it is very hard. I do think that if you're going to be in front of the camera in any kind of film capacity, getting over the concept of rejection being personal is very, very hard.
It takes a while, it really does, to not let it sit with you and let it impact your own way of thinking, and knowing when to take criticism, but knowing when that criticism isn't valid and it's just an attack on you, because there's a big difference, there's a huge difference.
And sometimes you
And
don't even get the criticism. You just get nothing. You just auditioned.
yeah,
You don't get any
sometimes that's
feedback, and that's
worse.
it. Yeah.
That's worse sometimes. I actually like when people are like, "Okay, this was good, but here you can work on this, this, and this." I'm like, "That's great. I will take that every day." But if you make like comments about things that I can't change or like things about me and stuff, I'm not gonna internalize that at all. Screw you. Like that is something that took me a while to
Hmm.
realize in both theater and film, because you face that in both.
Yeah, sometimes you walk into an audition, you can nail it, the whole aspect of what they're looking for with the character, but they've decided something about it, like, "Oh, no, we really didn't want someone who looked like you." And that's not really like you're too fat or too blank or too big, but like you can go into an audition, you have no chance of winning. And as an actor, like that's just something you have to be able to
Yeah.
deal with. And it's really hard. I think if you like did an office job where like, yeah, I'm sorry, some of these it just Yeah, like it's much harder. Like you would start to take that personally after a
But yeah,
while. Yeah.
when they're because a lot of people have a very specific image in mind when casting a very specific person, and like that's like a completely different thing. That's like for casting and everything. Sometimes they won't critique your acting things. They'll just like, you're not the person you're looking for, and you just accept it and like, okay, next audition. Okay, what's next? I feel like you have to be in that mindset of, okay, what's next? What are my next steps? Where should I go from here? Instead of like lingering on the rejection.
Hmm.
I think that's so important, is just keeping that forward momentum, that forward positivity into making your mind constructive and piecing together your next steps.
Yeah. Have you ever had to cast a film or any of your stuff yet?
I'm looking to cast like in a month or so,
Hmm.
with my stuff in pre-production. So I've casted for like, silly things that I made in high school. Like little we used to make in my film and communications class, we used to make like recreations of like SNL skits or like scenes from The Office,
Hmm.
things like that. So I'd always like, okay, you're gonna be this person and you're gonna be this person. And all of my friends would be like, oh, are we really doing this right now? I'm like, yes, you're gonna like it. We're filming this right now. You're gonna be in this.
Aggressive casting.
Yes, but it's gonna be cool to step into that casting mindset in the next few months.
Hmm. Was there a film that you saw, or even just a piece of theater that felt like it clicked for you, where you were like, I want to get on the stage or I want to get in front of a camera?
Don't know if there was anything in particular that inspired that. I think I've always been outgoing and wanting to always perform and take on roles and stuff. Like even when I was in preschool, I would just get up on the stage and like just go all out and have fun and like
Hmm.
play characters in the little Thanksgiving play, or like I sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star when I was like 3 years old in front of a whole gymnasium full of people. So like I think it wasn't a project or anything in particular I saw that made me want to go into acting or into film. It was just that feeling I had ever since I was little that this is what I want to do.
Hmm. I often think that women who want to get into acting, or even minorities, people of color who want to get into acting, wind up becoming also writers or directors for failure of good roles to audition for. Is that why you feel like? I feel like you're not really even given a choice, especially if a woman who likes horror. You're like, I gotta step in here.
The thing is, I'm always making up stories in my head. I always have like fun ideas. Literally, this is how I fall asleep every night. I think of a story in my head, some sort of plot, and I play it out in my head until it lulls me to sleep.
Great.
So it's oh, I think it's just built into me to
Mhm.
have that creative drive. And I've always loved writing. I was always the kid writing in her notebook on the side, like just coming up with stories. And I just think that I love acting, but I also love writing too. So why not try both at the same time and see, what works out for me more so. And it doesn't mean that I still can't do both or even take a hand at directing, which I also want to try more of as well, because I need to learn little more technical skills, but I think I have it in my head like, okay, I want this shot here. I think this would look great here. Like I can picture it all in my head. It's more or less the execution part that I really want to like hone in on.
Yeah, and I mean, director does not need to be the cinematographer either. That's another
No.
blur that tends to happen. A lot of directors are also cinematographers. I just tend to find that women who are writers and actors and directors, that's a way more common thing. Where I know a lot of my male friends who are directors are just directors, sometimes writers, and like would never get in front of a camera. No way are you getting them in front of a camera. And there's a part of me that's almost just like, you lucky bastards. We don't get to make that choice.
Also too love just like learning new things. I like doing like a jack of all trades type things where like you dabble in a lot of other things. I'm someone who starts a project but then gets another idea and starts another project, and then I have like five different things. But then I do finish them. But the problem is like my head is always kind of like going in different places, and I like to try a lot of new things to like experiment with stuff.
Mhm.
And it's always fun to get a new experience on set in another position that maybe you haven't tried before. Um, and I think it's cool because like I know I'm younger, like in experience wise, I haven't had as much experience, say, as some of my other friends in the industry. And I want to get that experience by trying new things out and seeing what sticks. And also, the more I learn on set, the more versatile I am for hiring as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always that fine line between like, I want to be helpful on set, I want to learn stuff on set, and then like, am I being extorted because they simply didn't want to hire someone for this? So like,
Yep.
yeah, the beauties of independent filmmaking. So speaking of which, what are you working on right now? What if I wanted to find you and stuff? Where should I go? How can people get a taste of what you're already doing?
Well, I have a movie that's been streaming since March, early March on Tubi up right now called Dark Places. It's a feature-length horror film that I star in as Natalie Parker. It's categorized as satanic horror, which is really fun. I like to think of it as satanic horror meets Scream almost. And it's like you have to kind of figure out who is not Ghostface, Goathead, our Goathead, our
We don't
our
want to get
villain.
sued.
No, not getting sued here. Figure out who Goathead is under the mask, and he's kind of terrorizing this college town. And my character, she's kind of at the center of it. She has to figure out who is it, and it's a really fun kind of horror mystery almost.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love when I can just pull up a movie and just watch it on my own TV in my room. It's just like, hey, I can watch that whenever I want. I'm probably not gonna watch it today, but like I have the ability to like just stream this whenever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's free. It's streaming for free on Tubi. Go watch that.
Awesome.
Also, I have a couple films we've completed production, but they're going to be releasing soon. One from Riley,
Mm-hmm.
called ISO, a film we've been working on where I play a psycho assassin, which is really fun.
I did get to see an early screening of that. I feel so blessed. I'm like, oh yes, not out yet, but I saw it.
Yeah, you're like part of the cool club, the VIPs.
Yes, it's good. I definitely, if you can see it, if you see Iso is playing near you when you hear the sound of this voice telling you about it, go fucking see it.
Do it. You better do it. Also, Josh DeForge, we just wrapped not too long ago on a short film called The Hollow Signal as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be coming out, I think, around October.
Nice.
It's a fun short film, very witchy, very supernatural-esque.
Awesome.
It's fun. And basically, I was like, hey Josh, is this outfit cool? And secretly, it was my Sam Winchester outfit. Don't tell anyone from Supernatural, because I wear a lot of flannel.
It is New England, so
It
you're allowed
is.
to. So
It
yeah.
is. It's so legit. Like I could secretly be dressing as any one of the Winchesters, and no one would know it. Like it's like I call it discreet cosplay. I can't tell you how many times I've worn my red flannel, which is probably like 5 or 6 years old now, in so many different films, and I'm like, that's gotten so much use.
It's like a trivia on your IMDb. Often wears red flannel as seen in
Hmm.
blah 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 blah. I like it.
But yeah, also Joey's short film. We're gonna film that soon. Very excited to film. That's in pre-production right now. I was recently cast in another feature film that is now in pre-production as well, called Intrigue. Chris Mortensen. It's gonna be really awesome. Can't say too much about it right now, but we're gonna be filming probably in the next few months or so. So I'm really hyped about that as well. And there's a few other stuff in pre-production, but I can't get into it also because my memory's slipping up a little bit. Shh, we're gonna stay quiet on that.
We'll keep you signed don't talk, the law.
Yeah,
It's just you can't. It's
yeah, it's a lot. I could get sued. I could be taken
yeah,
to court.
yeah. Listen, So you're going to have to go and find Lindsey on social media to stay up to date with this kind of stuff when trailers get released and when news can be said. And how would I do that?
Yes, so you can reach me at my Instagram, which is Lindsey the Nerd, spelled Lindz, the Nerd. Also, if you want to like follow me on Facebook, as well, just search up my name, Lindsey Deland. I post a lot of stuff on there as well. TikTok, I don't post as much. It's more or less my cosplay stuff, but if you're interested, also Lindsey the Nerd, but not with the Z, just my name, Lindsey the Nerd, as well. I'm trying to think what other. I think that's it for socials. But yes, most of my stuff is on Instagram, so you can find me on Insta.
Perfect. And of course, all of that stuff is going to be in the liner notes. So if you're looking for a link, if you want to see how things are spelled, down instead of up, links are up, text is down. It'll be there. It'll also be in just if you're seeing this as a social media post, it'll be linked there. You're probably already on Instagram when you're looking at this. She's linked in the thing. Go there.
Boom.
Boom.
Set.
We try and make it so easy. We just want you to go click on the things as easy as possible. And that brings me to our 3 questions that we ask everyone, starting with, of course, what is the first film you can remember seeing in a theater?
My first film was Wall-E. My first film. I want to say 3 years old. I remember bits and pieces of it. I was really little at the time, but it is one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time, if not my favorite, because of that. And it's probably the first time I had consciousness as a human being.
What do you remember?
Just like fragments of stuff. But I've seen the movie so many times now where it's hard to like pick pieces from what I remember. I remember the star scene when Wally's up in the stars and he's like putting his hand through like the like that is like a very big picture in my head that I remember from when I was a kid. Also too, like the Disney DVDs, I don't know, they used to play like a song before all the movies. It was like as fly as a fox, da, 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 da. And it would like show like scenes from what like if some people might remember this, I don't know, this is like a very niche, like it would be like here you can skip all of this or watch it, and then Disney Fast Play would come up, but then if you didn't skip it, like this commercial thing would show like for like Disney DVDs. But yeah, it would like always be Wally on there, so I have like a vivid memory of that as a kid as well.
That's crazy. I didn't really watch Disney as a kid, and then I was an adult when Wally came out. So like, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about with the DVDs, but I do love that idea. I'll have to check it out. The weird things that we like cling to, the
Yeah.
memories of like a sound or a smell or a thing like that. Do you feel like Wally inspires you as a filmmaker? Are there things about it that you wish you could get back to?
I think just the elements in general of the story, because stories that have the ability to make you laugh and cry at the same time are so powerful. And Wally just had such a good message too. And it also, like, looking at it now is like, it's low key, like, I feel like we're headed towards Wally. Like, it's a little relevant in today's world as well. And I see it as just such a great, like, commentary on, like, the life we like the world we live in and like what it could become if we don't step up, if we don't like embrace nature, if we don't like clean up our act, if we don't take control of our own lives and let machines and people in power keep running it for us. And I think that message is just so important. And it was ingrained in me as a little kid. So being able to send that message, but also have like cute, funny, lovable robots and have such like comedy in it. I still remember the little robot Mo that would like try to clean up all the dirt and stuff, and it was always just like so funny to me. And I just think stories like that are so important in this day and age.
Absolutely agree with you on that. I think Pixar is very good at kind of being the A24 of Disney films, kind of
Yes.
like you get the little bit of the better ones out of those ones.
Yeah, and I loved Hoppers too. I saw that recently in theaters. I loved it.
Yeah, my husband saw that, but I haven't seen it yet. He did say it was pretty good. I really love how so much of the beginning is no dialogue as well. That is a very powerful and interesting way to tell a story, especially if you're telling a story to a child. a 3-year-old. Like the language doesn't have to be there for you to reach them. That's really fascinating. Cool. Cool story. Good choice. Even though you didn't get to choose it, it's just what you remembered. Like it's just what you got. Second question. What movie do you think you've seen more times than any other film? It's usually people's comfort film.
Is this gonna be a weird comfort film?
They all
That would
are,
just,
so don't worry.
I'm
Mine's
such a horror.
Tombstone.
Jeez, I'm such a horror fan. So my horror comfort movie is probably my favorite movie of all time as well. Is Scream. Actually, I referenced it a little earlier, and that's why I love Dark Places so much because it takes a lot of elements from my favorite movie into it. But Scream is my all-time favorite movie, and I find myself watching it so much just because like I can quote it inside and out. Like I'm literally watching it and just like saying all the lines back. Matthew Lillard's so iconic in it, and
Mm-hmm.
like all of his lines especially I just like quote so much. In my family we quote it too. Like my family and I speak in movie quotes, especially I think the most common one is I feel a little woozy here.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's a great one too, because if it's not just a horror movie, it's not just an incredibly influential horror movie. It's a horror movie that loves horror movies and talks about it the whole time. So if you liked cinema, if you liked that, it has a bit of that reference, it has a bit of that kind of deviance to make you feel like you're being seen. I love Lillard as a scream queen. Like he's so good.
He's amazing, and he's such a nice person too. I had the
Mm.
chance to meet him at 90s Con, and he's just the sweetest guy ever.
Oh,
Oh my god.
I love to hear that.
He's so sweet. And I met Skeet as well, Skeet Ulrich at Rhode Island Comic Con a few years back as well. He's
Hmm.
also so sweet. In both pictures, they're like stabbing, like taking my prop knife against me. And it's cool. I was like, oh, I have matching pictures with Ghostface, with both ghost faces. And I'm like, this is great.
I would be remiss to not take a moment and pause because there was a mention of Matthew Lillard in the zeitgeist again this year and Quentin Tarantino at the same time. Because Quentin
Yes.
Tarantino has decided to stop making movies but keep talking, which is something I don't think you should do. And he went out this year to just pick off a couple people he thought were very bad actors. And one of them was Paul Dano, and the other was Matthew Lillard. And silver lining to this was that everyone stood up for Dano and Lillard to such a degree that Matthew Lillard felt lifted up and loved in a way he didn't know he was. So that was great. But also, we are about to talk about a film written by a guy who said Matthew Lillard is not a good actor. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that is factually, provably false.
I mean, as a Scooby-Doo fan and a Scream fan, like, Matthew Lillard is my childhood and also my teenage years. Like, he has such versatile acting abilities, and I think every movie I watch him in is absolute, like, peak cinema.
Yeah, we'll come at you if you want to argue this in the comments. We have the time and we have the angry energy. So
I'm
don't do
like,
it.
don't say anything. Don't let
Mm-mm.
it out. Deep breaths.
Can I ask you just a quick aside? How do you feel about where the Scream franchise has gone as an entity? Because we're now at Scream 7.
Didn't hate it, but I didn't love the last Scream movie. I don't think there's necessarily a bad Scream movie in my opinion. I will say this last one was my least favorite. But I think it might be setting up because they're already in pre-production on the next Scream. So what I'm thinking this was more of like a setup to like I think they're like setting something up. If not, if I'm wrong, then like okay, I'm wrong. But like I really think and I still think this, even after the last Scream movie, that Matthew Lillard character, I think Stu Macher is still alive. Really think they're setting that up for the next Scream movie. I really do. And I think it's going to be an even bigger reveal cuz like okay, I'm going to spoil some stuff.
We don't know because it hasn't happened yet. You're going to predict some stuff.
I'm going to predict. Well, also from the last Scream movie. If you
Well,
haven't
if
seen
you
the
haven't
last
seen
Scream
that,
movie,
sorry, it's out.
the
Pause and go
whole
watch it. It's on Paramount.
I predicted like I kind of saw the ending coming from a mile away. The last one, it was really easy. It was just kind of like the reveal was sloppy. Like I thought everything else was decent, but the ending was what I had issues with. And the whole time I'm going like, "Aka, excuse me," because The actress in Pitch oh god, I can't think of her name. The actress in Pitch Perfect, because that's all I can all I picture when I see
Anna
her, because she
Kendrick?
was no, no, no. She led. Oh my god! But she was Ghostface in the last Scream movie, and the whole time I'm thinking like, oh my god, like like it just it was so cheesy, and I love Scream movies. They are cheesy, but like this was like a little too much.
Yeah. I mean, it's seven. It's hard when you get to
It's
seven
hard.
and it's
Well,
not all written by the same people continually. I mean, it's
yeah.
repeating, but not always.
But people keep saying that Scream movies are turning into stab movies, and I couldn't agree more. Like, they mocked, I want to say in either Scream 5 or 6, like, just how far stab movies have gone, and like, Ghostface uses a flamethrower now, and I'm like, it's like starting to become the parody that they, like, you know?
It's
I really
swallowing its
think,
own tail. Yeah,
yeah.
really.
But again, I loved all the cameos. I loved the whole I thought the AI thing was actually a kind of creative. It was a nice way of bringing back old ghost faces and getting
Mhm.
a bunch of cameos in, and I kind of like that aspect. But I think it could have been executed much better, just overall.
So, what story book thing that you're aware of? I mean, you're a writer, so the instance you want to say like my story, but something that
Mhm.
already exists out there that you really feel like should be made into a movie, but just doesn't seem to have been made into a movie yet.
I it's I'm trying to think which story should be made into movie. I think there's a lot of like I think there needs to be more Greek mythology movies after watching The Odyssey, and I'm like currently very hyperfixated on Greek mythology. I think there just needs to be more because there's so many stories. There's like countless,
Mm-hmm.
countless stories, and only like a handful of them have ever been made into films. And I think we can also put modern spins on things. Like we can take the structures that were created thousands of years ago and retell them in a new and inventive way because honestly they were genius storytellers in our past, and like how a lot of Shakespeare is taken and like redone in like a modern way. She's the Man is one of my favorite, like I love that movie so much.
Just
And
watch
I
10 Things I Hate About You.
yes, like things like that, but I think we can do that with more mythological things and like making them modern.
Do you think that there's a risk with those stories where even if we modernize them, they're identifiable and they're so old as to be like, well, I know where this story is going and I know how it's going to end. You can change the skin of this, but like, why retell an old story like that?
I think it doesn't matter if you know where it's gonna end because you watch countless of remakes of Romeo and Juliet and you know how that's gonna end, yet it's entertaining like
I would
every
argue
single
it's not, and we got to stop on that
really.
one. I really, if we make another goddamn Romeo and Juliet, I am going to kick someone straight in the face.
See, I sometimes really like that comfort of knowing it, but also you can take the story, but you can also flip it on its side and not necessarily end it in the same way. You
Mm-hmm.
can take elements, you can take fragments, cool little bits and pieces of it, and make it into your own story
Yeah.
with a different ending so that you can throw people off and be like, I know how this ends. I've heard it a million times. No, you haven't, because this is like a new way of telling it.
Yeah.
And it's not copyright because it's thousands of years old. So,
Exactly. You can skin right
like,
on top of that. I do think I would be
exactly.
interested in at least a Romeo and Juliet that fully embraces the fact that it is not originally intended to be romantic. They are children. It's intended to be funny. Like they're
Or
idiots.
also, like, you know, like even platonic, like Romeo and Juliet, necessary. Like, I
Mhm.
think there can be so much done with the story and like so many different ways of tragic love because, you have the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Like, I feel like, I love Hades Town. Like, I feel like that can be done in so many different
Great
ways
example.
in
Great example.
modern storytelling. Like, you
Mhm.
can take that and go so many different routes with it.
I guess for me with Shakespeare, it starts to get to a little bit of the like There's only ever been one Titus Andronicus. We have a lot of lesser stories that are interesting we don't revisit. And then also, is he not a bit of a Spielberg where, like, other people wrote things at that same time period? We can always go to other people's plays too. So, yeah, there's a little bit of that, like, you got to have a reason. And if you're going to change the story, if you're going to interpret it differently and give me something differently, then I really do feel like, okay, yeah, let's revisit that story. Versus, like, sometimes I do think people are just going, hey, this isn't copyrighted. We can steal it.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I loved Bridget Jones, even if it is just sensibility or Pride and Prejudice.
Mm.
So,
But yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, there's all these different areas where you can go. So that brings us into the film that we're here to talk about today. And there's a couple of different things that we've said while we've been talking that I've been like, oh, these are great jumping points. There's so much to talk about. So let's just get it out the gate. Why haven't you seen Pulp Fiction? I think it came out before you were born.
Yes, I think like 10 years. What was it? 94?
In 94, yeah.
I
There's
think.
never been a world where this film didn't exist for you. Why didn't you see it yet?
Well, I was a baby, so
Unacceptable. Wally, go see this.
I don't know. I think it was a little, I don't think it was age appropriate for me, but that's my parents' discretion.
Yeah, so
Although I did feel bad when I was watching it. I watched it with my mom and my little brother, he was in the other room doing a puzzle. He's 13 and I was like, I felt bad. I was like, you're not listening to this, right? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, just try to tune it out. And he had like music. I was like, okay, just don't look over here, buddy. And he was like, he ignored a lot of it, but then he said something that was absolutely hilarious to me after the film was done. He's like, this was like Cocomelon, but for adults. And I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, no, it's like Cocomelon for like men. Because it's okay, so it's this like very stimulating show for kids that constantly like has like a different frame rate, so it's like faster and it's more stimulating and it gets kids like addicted to it, and it's like constant showing something, boom boom boom, keeping them like hooked on it almost, and there's never like any downtime. It's always just, stimulating the mind. So I was like, oh my god, Alex, you're so right, because it's constant violence, constant this and this. It's like a lot at once. And I'm like, okay, you know what, Alex, you have my little brother, you have a point. You have a point.
yeah.
But also, sorry, I did not answer your question.
Nope.
I have been avoiding this, I think, just because of how popular it is and how almost a lot of like film bros I've met are like, this is the best movie ever. Like, you need to watch it. This is on like everyone's list. And Quentin Tarantino is the best director in the whole wide world. And you need to watch this. And a lot of times when people tell me to watch something, I don't always like want to watch it. I always feel like hesitant about it. Not because like I think it's bad necessarily, but because it's that like odd pressure to like feel like I have to enjoy this because everyone else enjoys it.
Yeah.
And I watched it with my mom, and she said she watched it when it came out first, but she didn't even finish it. She's like, I had to stop it because I didn't like it. I was like, oh, do you want to give it another chance with me? And she's like, sure. It's been, like 20 something years. So we watched it together and finally just like said, screw it, we're gonna just get through it all in one
Yeah.
go.
So before we jump into that sentence, which is very fascinating as well, we have to note, because I'm sure the film bros are biting at the chomp here, champing at the bit. That's what it is, not chomping at the bit.
Mm.
I am a very, very big fan of Reservoir Dogs, and I very much like True Romance, which is a film that Tarantino wrote but didn't really wind up directing. And this film is nominated for 73 industry awards and won 69 of them. The only reason it did not sweep the Oscars is because it came out the same year as Forrest Gump. In fairness, so did Shawshank Redemption. So both of those films got screwed at the Oscars because Forrest Gump also came out that year. So there's no version of the world where we're saying that technically this isn't a good film. But the reaction, even by your mom at the time when it came out, and everybody around her was saying it's a good film, is still going to vary from person to person. So, like, simply knowing that a film is good and lauded does not make it receivably good. And sometimes I'm the same exact way. I didn't read Harry Potter for like the first 6 years that those books were out until I wound up in London for like a month and was like, fine. And granted, I wound up hating Harry Potter, but I could see why people liked it. And I had to be like, no, this is just a mea culpa thing here. They're very good in the first and then they become Scooby-Doo-ish. So my main question here is, does your mom remember when she stopped watching it the first time? What scene was too
She
much?
remembered when we resaw the scene. She's like, this is where I called it quits, right here. And it was so funny because I could see why she called it quits. And I was like, okay, that tracks. That makes a lot of sense. Cause she has a thing with needles.
So she made it right to Mia.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. All right. And then another thing that we need to say about this film is that it's called Pulp Fiction, and Pulp Fiction novels are trash. They are trashy. They're meant to be a penny. They're meant to be sat on in your back pocket. They're meant to be given to somebody when you're done or thrown away because you don't even want to keep them. So, like, yeah, this the the com- the kind of comparison to like trashy children's television, Coco Melon, it's
Yeah.
these are apt things to say. Yeah, you are. It's garbage. It is purient. It is coming at you quickly. It is coming at you fast. It is a little intense, and so it winds up becoming so successful because the exact moment in time in which it comes out, which you, as a person who watched it yesterday, didn't get to experience. So we have this question of like, can you talk about a film from the perspective only of someone watching it today, or do you have to talk about it as a perspective of someone before, and does that even matter? So let's dive in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Did your mom feel like pushing through was worth it?
She wanted to see how it ended. So we watched, yeah, she pushed through. We both
Okay.
watched it all the way through. She made
Okay.
it through. She had to like look away a little bit.
That
But
needle scene is the only needle you really get. Oh, you get another shoot up scene
yeah,
later
she
on,
just
yeah.
yeah. It she did have to look away more as we kept watching as well. But I was like watching the whole thing. I was invested. I was like, okay, I need to see how this ends. And I was like the whole time watching, I'm like, it's gonna end in that diner again, isn't it? It's like the whole time I was like, it's gonna go back right from the start. And sure enough, it did. And then I thought there'd be something else, but then the movie just ended. I was like, okay, like that makes sense because the whole structure was interesting. It was different perspectives, different character perspectives, and I thought that was cool. But it also just felt like definitely not a normal plot structure at all. It just went off on little tangents and stuff, which sometimes I liked, sometimes I was like, this doesn't feel like like I don't feel like the story's advancing as much as I'd like it to.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like the part with Bruce Willis, his character there. I wasn't a huge fan of that storyline there. And I saw how it tied back in. Yeah, yeah, that
No,
whole
ironically, that is the seed of this film. The film starts with just the Bruce Willis part, and then they tack on the Vincent Vega part in the car, and then they build out of that. But like, it's interesting that was at one point all the movie was about.
Mm,
What didn't
yeah,
you like about it? What didn't work for you?
I just the whole thing with like the bondage stuff in the basement,
Mm.
it felt like I was just watching someone's fetish party, you know? It was just really it felt unnecessary.
I mean, we don't ever
And
see it, so it's just referenced
no,
in the out of
no.
the room. Yeah.
But it just felt like I don't know. I think this whole movie definitely made me uncomfortable, which other movies
Mm.
had, but the whole time I'm thinking like what the fuck is this, but not in a good way, you know? It wasn't enjoyable for me. It wasn't something that made me think, oh, this is like a great movie, you
Hmm.
know?
I
It
don't
just
think the
had me,
scene should make people enjoy it. And I
yeah,
think
it
you should say,
had
I
me like
enjoyed
just
that scene.
questioning like why is this here? Why was this deemed necessary to put in?
Speak to that. Like, so when you talk about Pulp Fiction novels back in the day, there are different genres that you're going to get. And one of them was pornography, one of them was fetish. And so to include some amount of sexual fetishism or bondage or something in there, although this is not played for enjoyability, this is a violent version of it, is hearkening to that. So this entire film is made using a technique called bricolage, which I want to make sure I get the guy who invented the technique. Anthropologist Claude Levi Strauss, who defined it as a process of creating something new by making do with whatever material was currently at hand. And so Tarantino is responding to being a child who is fed Pulp Fiction. That's the AI, you fed it Pulp Fiction. And it's spitting out stories in the genre. And so this is one of the stories in the genre, and they're all redemption stories, right? So, like, we have this really horrible thing. I don't think it should be played for kicks on Route 66 happening to Marcellus Wallace. But what we already know about Marcellus Wallace is that he is terrible. He is a terrible human being who probably shouldn't be saved. And our character, who might even die because he saves him, who's morally shitty, still chooses to save him. And so that's like, it's a MacGuffin. There's so many things in the stories that just exist because they need to exist to advance the plot forward. Like, how do you feel about MacGuffins in film? Let's go right there.
I don't know. After you explaining to me, I was like, okay, that does make a lot of sense now.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, watching the movie, I could see exactly why like people love this movie and why it's iconic and
Mm-hmm.
like it's quotable as anything. I've heard I had like a light bulb go off like, oh my god, this is where this quote's from. Um, and like I can really see like exactly where you're coming from with this, and
Mm-hmm.
I do understand it a little bit more now. I think it's just because my perspective, someone born in 2005, watching this like in like current age and just, you know, as a woman as well, I have a very different perspective on it than like other people
Mm-hmm.
would have. So I think I just saw like, okay, this is just a bunch of senseless violence, meaningless cussing, a lot of negative perpetual stereotypes shown,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of just like, you know, that sort of stuff. But I can kind of see now where there's a lot of art in this film and where there's a lot
Yeah.
of like, and I thought also the cinematography was really well
Oh, yeah,
done
no,
as
but
well.
like going straight to this, just the literary concept of a MacGuffin. When you're writing stories, how do you feel about films that use MacGuffins? Like Alfred Hitchcock famously kind of uses them first, although you'll see them in a lot of stuff before that that kind of gets coined because of his desire to use them. You can see it in the Maltese Falcon. It's literally just, this object is here because we need to move the story forward. It's actually named after a Scottish story about an old shaggy dog where they're on this train. This guy has the sack. People keep asking him what's in the sack, and he keeps saying, oh, it's a MacGuffin. And people are like, what is a MacGuffin? And he's like, it's a thing that can like scare away tigers. And they're like, there are no freaking tigers in Scotland. And he's like, well, then I guess it just isn't a MacGuffin. And they never explain what it is, but the story keeps moving forward because the object itself exists. That can feel lazy, right? But also, we have a history of doing this. Like, the story has to move forward. When you watch a rom com, you're like, this only happened because this miscommunication is what needs to happen to make the story happen. As a viewer, how do you feel about that? Versus as a writer, how do you feel about that?
A lot of times when I'm watching movies and stuff, I will sometimes like shut my practical brain off a little bit, because I know, like, well, they'd never do that. They have to do that because this is what needs to, to go on. They need to go to this place in order for this to, in order for the events to unfold. But I try to turn that off because I know it's good storytelling, because it makes sense, like, plot wise. Sometimes. But if it's too blatant, I can't ignore it. If it's just like a little bit like, okay, I can let that slide. And if it's done well enough, if it's given enough reason to, put something there, or to go have a character do something and go somewhere, then that's completely fine. And sometimes done very, very cleverly.
Yeah. It's always a fine line. I think that it's a tool, and it's like any kind of tool, it's about how you use it. That scene being said, I don't think I know anybody who says, I love Pulp Fiction and that scene is my favorite scene. That scene almost always is a scene that people say, like, that's hard to watch. That scene pushes a little far. With the exception of the quotes, people do like to quote Marcellus Wallace towards the end. And the honesty is Marcellus Wallace himself is saying a quote from another movie. This entire movie is bricolage made of other movies, made of other things. There's over 100 different movies and television shows being referenced at any time. Most of the lines are things from other things. And so, like, even I myself, when I watched it, I didn't get all the references. I now know all the references because I like went through and like taught myself all the references. But I do think that this film has a certain line of like, you kind of need to know them to feel it. Otherwise, it feels kind of disjointed, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
No, yeah.
This can be disjointed. I mean, we are living in the vibes era.
Yeah, it felt disjointed in a way that wasn't my cup of tea. And I've watched disjointed stories before. I don't mind it when it's done well, but in my opinion, I just wasn't a huge fan about how this jumped around, and it felt like a lot of it was a little meaningless. But I guess you kind of have to have that with this kind of story. I think I'd never read an actual Pulp Fiction, like, not like, I don't think I'd ever do that. So it makes sense as to why maybe I didn't like this movie as much as some other people would have liked this movie. Because my lived experiences are much different than like someone who would have watched that back in the day.
Yes, and you've received a lot of different movies since this film came out.
Yes.
So, like, disjointing the narrative at this point in time is pretty unheard of. Obviously, not the first film to have done this, but still one of the more mainstream films to do this. So, it's reaching a lot of audiences in that kind of way. I mean, when it hits Cannes, when it premieres at Cannes, it wins the Palme d'Or because of that feeling, this just intense, like, oh my God, I've not seen or felt anything like this before. Which kind of brings me back to our workshop. Sorry, the pitch workshop that we talked about, because up until this point in time, most of your prestige films, the films that are going to go to Cannes, the films that are going to be considered independent, the niche, big thinking films, your Jerry Bruckheimer kind of like mainstream niche films, are pitchable in one sentence. The like Alien was pitched as being Jaws in space. Okay, that's great. This film shook up Hollywood so badly because you cannot describe it in one sentence, and there really isn't a story. It's just this happened this day, this way. And there's a little bit of like redemption narrative being held throughout because you get the Jules character and what he's talking about and the thing that he says, which, by the way, created a bunch of people who think that that's actually a biblical verse. It's not a biblical verse. It's a quote from a kung fu movie. It's a cool quote though, right?
It is very badass. Yeah.
Very badass to say that. So, as someone who's had to do a pitch in a single sentence, do you find it kind of like exciting to know that people can still break that mold And mainstream America, mainstream the world will be excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's cool that that kind of like set the tone that you can, you know, set the standard where like, okay, this is you can break it if you have something like original enough that can like succeed as like a pieced off story that can't be summarized like that. But also too, I think only certain people are able to get away with that. It depends on how much power you have in the industry, how much persuasion you have with your words and your pitch if it's not just like one sentence long. Also, Quentin Tarantino too, by now, I think he was like an established name. Didn't he have a movie before
He had one
Pulp
movie.
Fiction?
One
He had
movie. It's
one movie.
called Reservoir Dogs, and this film,
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, actually made on a micro budget and almost not made several times.
Really?
Had to go to Miramax, which sounds like, oh yeah, Miramax. Miramax was nobody at the time.
Oh,
This
wow.
film is the film that makes Miramax somebody, which in and of itself is part of the conversation. There's a couple of topics we have to cover where this film is difficult to like because of things related to this film. Miramax was owned by Harvey Weinstein. This film made Harvey Weinstein possible. He also sexually assaulted Uma Thurman as a result of this film and going into other Tarantino films. So like it's a real hard thing to say like this is great because this film gets made on $88 million and winds up making $218 million, 27 times what it cost to make. And they had to fight for that. It's actually Danny DeVito who puts up most of the money for this film. It's so
Hmm.
weird.
That's wow.
He saw Reservoir Dogs, liked it so much, met Tarantino, and said, whatever movie you make next, I am producing and we're going to get made. Before they even read a script, he was on board for this. So it was really, really, really hard to get this movie made. And it made Hollywood turn around and suddenly say, shit, maybe they should look at these independent movies. And then you start getting Kevin Smith, you get Clerks, you get this whole influx of movies that are getting brought to mainstream America because we liked this one movie that was a little bit weird.
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
I because
This
like
movie made
in
him.
my head I'm thinking like there's so many big names in this. Like I know he had Reservoir Dogs before because I did look it up on IMDb. I was like, oh, probably Reservoir Dogs did set him up a little bit to have that ability to cast such you know, star-studded cast and also be able to have like, you know, backing with Danny DeVito and everything. And
Let me tell you what, every single person in this movie wasn't famous when this movie came out. They were
really,
failed actors. He had to
wow.
fight to get everybody in this movie because they did not think Miramax was like, I'm not putting a bunch of has-beens in a goddamn movie. John Travolta was supposed to be Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's crazy. Cause like
But
you look at all these actors, like Samuel L. Jackson, like Uma Thurman, like they're
mhm,
such big names. So like this was the movie that
now,
like,
because of
wow,
this movie. Because of this
that's
movie.
crazy.
Bruce Willis had done Die Hard and couldn't get out of the Die Hard role. The only reason he's in this movie, it was supposed to be Sylvester Stallone, is because Harvey Keitel is close personal friends with Karen Tarantino, and Bruce Willis was Harvey Keitel's neighbor. And
Wow.
when he found out Keitel was doing this, he begged him to let to be on the movie, and he did it for scale. The entire budget of this movie is less than Bruce Willis got to be in Die Hard 2. Like Uma Thurman, nobody at the time. John Travolta had just finished doing Look Who's Talking 2 or 3. He was completely washed up and they didn't want him to be in the movie. Samuel L. Jackson had to audition. The guy who plays English Dave, the bartender, was supposed to be his role. Yeah, every single person in this movie was almost nobody. And then this
That's
movie
insane.
made them somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah.
Cause like these are such big names today.
Mhm. Christopher Walken, like, and what I think is interesting about this movie, besides it being like violence, action, purience, is the quotability of these monologues. Tarantino also felt like one of the first directors to sit down and be like, I'm gonna give these characters long monologues where they say something cool. They say something quotable. I'm going to make the audience wish they were some of these characters, even though they're morally shitty people you should never want to be. All of us were just like, damn, that's cool to say that. How do you feel about that?
I think, yeah. I think all of the monologues were when I was paying, like, honed in on the movie the most because of just how, I will admit, good the writing was with these monologues. Definitely quotable as anything. And I think that's what makes this movie so iconic is the monologues and just how well each actor like fit their role and like performed their characters. And I think without that, I don't think this movie would have been as like beloved or anything like or noted as one of the top movies of all time without those monologues.
Yeah, I mean, Tarantino is making an entire, like, auteur signature by giving this patois to his characters and this like naturalism that you don't always get. I want to hate certain directors, but as an actor, I'm also so like interested. Not very many writers even want to give multiple characters monologues. Like, was there a monologue that stood out in this for you that like, man, that's fascinating to give that much space there? Or is there a monologue in another film where you're like, this is monologuing for me? Like, how do you, as a writer actor, feel about
Yeah.
monologuing?
I think monologuing is important and it gives you so much insight into a character and how they think and how they, go about the world and how they see the world.
Mm-hmm.
I thought in this movie, Samuel L. Jackson's monologue towards the end was absolutely incredible. And it really shows you how he wants to change in his course of action. It's like, I know I'm not like a good person, but this is like, these are the steps I want to take, and this is what I'm going to do. And like how he just takes control of the situation and walks away without, anything. And then that's how the movie ends. And I think that monologue there was really, really powerful.
Yeah, to think that he almost like he had to audition for the role. It's like
Yeah.
fascinating. He didn't know he had to audition for the role, and he got a little pissy about it, and he kind of screwed the first audition. And it was really Miramax that was like, cast Samuel L. Jackson. So he came back and did another audition, and they asked him, they were like, really, can you give us like 100%? Don't just give us the audition. And he did pretty much what we wind up seeing on screen. And you're like, this guy is anchoring this film in a way that you can see how Tarantino decides to put him in every single film from that point on. Yeah, it's.
Absolutely.
I love monologues. I feel like you can really see good acting in a monologue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like almost every audition, at least theater auditions, you have to have a prepared monologue. Like that's part of the process is to show off your acting because that's like a really good like you can say lines back and forth, sure, like that's what characters do, but a monologue is where you really show your acting chops and really like get into a character's depth.
Do you have a go-to monologue?
Actually, I actually don't have a go-to because I change it up depending on what I'm auditioning for, depending on what I find and what fits best, I think, with the genre or with what the character I'm going for, or with even the director that I'm auditioning for, what I think might appeal to them and their thought process in the auditioning
Mhm.
cycle. So
Yeah.
it changes a lot.
I keep one appropriate one memorized because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an audition where I was told, "No lines, just show up, we'll work with you." And then you get there and the director's like, "You don't have anything prepared?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Jeez.
I certainly do, this one thing." So yeah, I do keep a back pocket one just in case.
Yeah, it's so stupid, but I memorized this not even like for performances, but the whole monologuing and dialogue of the Mustafar scene in Revenge of the Sith. I have that whole entire scene just like memorized. Just like not even for I haven't used it for jack shit, but it's just one of those things that like you've seen a film so many times, you just know it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That is a sentence that I feel like we as a viewer just learned an incredible amount about you from just a few bits of words. We're like, she's good people.
I think that and Scream are tied for my favorite movie. I lied. I have a tied spot for my
Okay.
number one.
We'll allow it. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what I continuing on and talking about these monologues, there was something that I noticed. I haven't watched Pulp Fiction in like 15 years. Just didn't have the reason to. I think I watched it so many times it felt like I'd known it. But watching it this time I realized there are some interesting points where characters are monologuing and we're watching someone they're talking to. So, like, the choice to not look at the speaker was interesting. So, let's talk a little bit about the cinematography because I know you said there was some things about the cinematography that really struck you.
Yes.
What really sticks out?
That was one of them because I think reaction shots are just as powerful as showing this. I think if not more powerful sometimes. And I liked how much they showcase that. There was
Mm.
also one scene. It was them, the shot of the trunk, and them opening it up.
Yes,
And
yes.
I've seen that done so many times. As a Supernatural fan, I've seen that so many times. Eric Kripke, one of my favorite directors, because he directs The Boys and Supernatural, uses that shot so much, and I've seen it in other things too. And I was like, I have a feeling that Quentin Tarantino pioneered that shot. And like, I just love that. I was like, oh! Like a little light bulb went off in my mind, like, yes, yes.
Yes. That's like his Akira slide. Like, you can
Mhm.
make a 2-minute video compilation of movies where they're shooting from that shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Another thing that was cool, and of course, you know, the title text, I love that because it was very reminiscent of Goodfellas in my
Mm-hmm.
head. I like that a lot. I like when directors do that. Also, too, and they never did this at all, but throughout the whole movie, except for this one time, when Uma Thurman draws the square. And I thought that was so cool because, like, you'd never see it again. It's just like a one off bit
Yeah.
thing. But it makes you so aware that you're watching a story, that you're, you know, sometimes I learned this in my film class and I never really noticed it until like a few months ago. You are watching a story. Sometimes directors want you to think that there's no director there at all, like that you're just in the story. And then there's sometimes where they want you to know that they're directing. The directors are kind of showing off so that you're aware that this is a story and that this is a Tarantino film. Like they'll do specific things to make you realize you're watching a movie the whole time. And then there's some stories that are just like you're in the it's like you're in the story, you know? You're not watching a movie. This is, you know, real life in a
Mm-hmm.
way. And I really liked that just one-off bit there. It came out of nowhere, but it was just kind of a cool little trick.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I think I've seen in things like Herbie the Love Bug and like Flubber kind of stuff where like, oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is like a 1950s kind of filmy thing. Yeah, it's very well said that like he wants to us to remember this is Pulp Fiction, this is a story, these are segmented vignettes versus like you're really in it. Which can come at a cost to take the audience out, but that actually does work very well there. Yeah.
And I think my favorite sequence in the movie was with Uma Thurman when they're going to the 50s place and doing the twist and everything.
Hmm.
Like I felt so immersed there and I thought that was such a cool place. The setting was awesome and I thought the acting like within just that little booth of the car, it was so compressed but it was so well done. And I was like, damn, I want a $5 shake. Why can't shakes be $5 anymore? I had a good laugh about that. I was like, was that like a absurd price
Yes, it
back in
was.
the day?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. When that movie came out, that was too much to spend for a shake. That was way too much for a shake.
Like, damn, I'd love a $5 shake. All the ones nearby are like $7 right now. I'd love a $5 shake.
I also love that when he drinks the shake, he's like, yeah, that's a $5 shake.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
really
$5 shake.
freaking good. I would pay for that. And you're like, yes, I will, because you get to see Vincent kind of come alive and a little bit come out of his shell and become like a person. It's it's so funny. I was watching it and I said to my husband, I think this is doing a better job of showing you the like de rigueur daily lives of evil killers than say Zone of Interest. Like They talk
Yeah.
about shit. They talk about TV. They have lives. They have things they're nervous about. You know, I really thought that the acting on Uma Thurman when she's telling the story about being in that pilot that failed and her eyes are a little bit misty and she's feeling really insecure even though she's got all the power, she's the boss's wife. That was really well done. Like there's great acting in that.
Yeah, I think Uma Thurman's performance in that is absolutely killer. She was probably my favorite character in that, even though she didn't have the most screen time. I thought her acting was just stellar. And two, like you just get so invested in the scene, especially like the twist competition, just 2 minutes of them just dancing and you're pulled out of like all the violence for just a second and see these are just two people and it really humanizes them in a way. And I thought that was really cool. Oh, what else was I gonna say about that scene? I really like that sequence a lot
Yeah.
too, and just like the cheesiness of the diner, the costumes, and then Steve Buscemi comes out of nowhere. It
Love
was
him.
He's awesome. I love Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was in this. I was like, oh, is that Steve Buscemi? And like, sure enough, I constantly have to like IMDb things. Like, is that like I always have my IMDb up every time I'm watching a movie because I have to know what else they were in. Like,
Absolutely. I,
but yeah,
everyone from
that
Reservoir Dogs is in this movie with the exception of Yeah, Marsden because he was filming Wyatt Earp. He was actually supposed to be Vincent Vega, but they couldn't. He wasn't there.
yeah, it was really really cool. And it's so cool when you can just see characters for how they are in a situation you wouldn't think that would be in a movie like this, and it kind of like really shows you another side of them, another perspective, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
So I think that even though you're right, she doesn't get that much screen time. The cover of the movie is Uma Thurman's character.
Yeah.
I think everyone agrees that is the most compelling of the stories when you're engaging with this film. Since we're all talking about Nolan, we're all talking about Odyssey, and everybody's always saying that Nolan can't really write women. Tarantino, worse, how do we feel about Mia as a character? She's really cool and effortless, but she's also kind of like a doll in a dollhouse.
Yeah, I thought the women, like the female characters, were written a little bit on the weaker side, like, it was more male centered. I
Mm-hmm.
thought Mia as a whole was pretty well written, although there were some aspects of her that I'm just like, would like a woman just go and do that, like
Mm.
some things were like fetish, definitely. Lot of foot shots, a lot of foot shots,
That's
but
gonna be there.
overall,
That's how you know you're watching a Tarantino film.
yeah. It's like, do they have to be barefoot like all the time? And like they're carrying her out to the car, she's barefoot. Like she's walking inside. The first thing she does is like go down to barefoot. Like she dances barefoot on the stage. I'm like, okay,
I'll give you this
okay,
stage because maybe you're respecting, I don't want street shoes on the dance floor. I'll give you that. But walking around in a parking lot, very bad idea.
yeah,
You're gonna catch your
no.
feet.
Like I get it, heels hurt, but like, come on.
Did you recognize the dance from the dance scene? I mean, it's hard because I think you might have also just seen people doing the dance from the dance scene.
It's a twist, right? Yeah.
It's kind of the twist. It's a bunch of different. It's like the mashed potatoes, bunch of different literal
Like a bunch of
dances.
like old style, like you know what was really funny? It did make me think of Grease, literally with John Travolta and the dance off that he does. And I
He's
just
a
have to
very good
laugh
dancer.
because I'm sure this is like at least a little bit of a nod to that. And sure enough, like his dancing style was kind of similar, like And I was like, yep, that's definitely for John Travolta there.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a good dancer. It was a great way to kind of bring him into that. It's this. Have you seen Fellini's 8.5?
No, I haven't.
There's an exact scene where they're dancing like that. So it's a graphic match for that scene. Because I remember watching it as a kid and being like, weird, why are they dancing like that? And then I watched 8.5 and I was like, they're doing the dance from, and it kind of came together. I was like, oh, it's yet again another reference. Also, Aristocats takes the dance scene from 8.5. So technically, you will also see this dance scene in the Disney film Aristocats.
I have seen. Oh my god, yes.
So yeah, it's like you might have seen it
Yeah.
there.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's crazy. I love when like little film light bulbs go off. Like, I know what this is. Like, boom.
Yeah.
Also too, there's so many like movies, classic movies I need to see and are on my watch list, and I want to see them like so bad, but I just,
Time.
I can only watch so many films. There's so many films that came out before I was born. I got a lot of catching up to do.
You just have a lot of great films waiting for you. That's all that
I know.
is. Not a bad
And
thing
it's
at
so
all.
cool because like people are like, oh my god, I wish I could like see this movie again. Like, I want to see your reaction when you see it. And it's kind of cool because like you just get to really just take it all in for the first time, and I try to go in always with an open mind. Even if I have my hesitations with it, I always try to go in with an open mind and a fresh set of eyes. Because when I went in to see The Odyssey a week ago or so, it was being trashed online. It was this, it was that, and I was just like, this looks really cool. I don't care what people are going to say. I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy this. And sure enough, it has now become one of my new favorite movies just because of how amazing it was. And you can't listen to other people. Even if they say it's the best movie ever, you need to decide that for yourself.
Do you think that you have more of a tendency to be willing to like a film people say is bad? Because we know that you didn't want to see this movie because too many people said it was good. Do you have a streak where you're like, I'll decide what's bad?
Yeah. Oh god. So I'm a huge fan of Sharknado. I've seen all 6 of them. I love Ian Ziering. I am a die-hard Sharknado fan. I've even met Ian Ziering. I met him at 90s Con as well. And I told him, I went up to him, I was like, man, I grew up on Sharknado. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I felt so bad because he was so confused because like everyone there was there to see him from 90210, but there's just like little me that's like, I'm from Sharknado, oh my god! Like, and it's just so funny because like a whole generation knows him from other films, other shows and stuff, and I just love Sharknado so much because it's so cheesy and everyone always hates on it. But it's one of those movies where it's so bad it's good. And I feel like a lot of people, there's some movies you just need to turn your brain off for and just sit back and enjoy. And if someone says a movie's bad, sometimes it makes me want to watch it more, sometimes it doesn't, depends on the context. But I always try to make that decision for myself. And it's good, especially if I don't know any of the scenes, if I walk into it blind. That's like the best kind of viewing experience, is if I don't know what I'm getting into at all.
It's so funny
yeah.
that you would say that. I think Roger Corman is a director who kind of started a lot of what winds up being those kinds of films, those Sharknadoes. He even did Piranha 3D, I think.
Yes. He's like known so much for making like BC, like those kind of tier movies.
Yeah, and if you're watching in the Jackrabbit Slim's restaurant scene, all of the posters on the wall are Roger Corman films.
Real wow.
And the reason
I did not notice
being,
that.
pulp novels are Quentin Tarantino's Roger Corman films. So what he's trying to say when this film comes out and everybody has no respect for any of these genres, they contain some pretty cool stuff. And I'm reinterpreting them all to show you some of the best I've ever seen, to kind of uplift the genre and show you that you can say something interesting and something viable and something that will get awards using the context of what is considered lesser art. And that is what I love about Pulp Fiction, even when you have maybe too many N-words or too much violence or too much that. I always remind myself that, like, shit, he's taking that kind of stuff that I love and making people say that, like, it's just as valid to be intellectual about Sharknado, because they're like, there's stuff going on here, even though it is Sharknado, but like, cheesy doesn't necessarily mean bad, right?
Oh, no, and again, I like to say this too, because this movie may not have been my cup of tea exactly, but I can recognize all the thought, all the like, Easter eggs put in there, all the genuine like deep stuff that this film's getting at, and I can recognize why so many people like have it in their top 4, or why so many people call this like one of the best movies of all time. And I think more people need to like kind of know that other people have different perspectives
Mm-hmm.
on things and on life, and so they will have different reactions to movies. You know, a lot of films that my parents love, I hate, and a lot of films I love, my parents hate. So there's like generational differences. There's differences in beliefs and values, and tradition. And you have to know that like you have like a core audience that's probably going to love this, but you're going to have an audience that probably thinks the exact different. And you can't always appeal to everyone.
Mm-hmm. It's also, very difficult when a film like this is defended by people who don't really want to have a conversation. They just want to tell you, you don't know what you're talking about if your opinion isn't, this is a T to B perfect movie that you loved every second of. And again, like
Which
I
is,
say, most people who say it's
yeah.
5 stars don't want to say they like that scene. Like, so it's not T to B. Come on.
Which is, it is sad sometimes because I love talking about films and I always like love to hear people's takes on it. And a lot of people who would say this movie is like their favorite and stuff don't always respect the takes of others and don't always acknowledge another person's perspective on this, because they just I have to be honest, there are a lot of Quentin Tarantino glazers who are the most toxic people you'll ever meet. But like, I'm not saying everyone who loves Tarantino is like that, but you will meet a lot of toxic fanboys who have that like, oh, Tarantino's the best. If you disagree, you're not a real filmmaker. You're not a real, you have a lot of that to deal with as well. So I think you just need to surround yourself with people who, maybe like this film, maybe like that film, but can also respect your film opinions and critiques, because at this at the end of the day, you should be able to disagree with a person and still be able to have a conversation with them.
And you should be able to find things that you both like and dislike in
Yeah.
almost any film. So for people to be like, there's no room for you saying there's something bad about this film. First of all, most films don't age very well. 20 or 30
Mhm.
years later, you're going to find aspects about them, whether they're great, usually it can boil down to simply like, oh, the guy who was in it and the guy who wrote it are terrible human beings. Sorry, Usual Suspects, like great film, but like very complicated now. So like I don't like anyone who's going to approach a film like that. I also find myself like trying to defend the films sometimes because like I hate the fandom. They ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
But the thing is pretty good. Can you think of any other fandoms where you're like, "Oh my god, I hate the fans but I love the art?"
Oh god, I'm a part of so many toxic male dominated fandoms as a fangirl that like I get told like, "Oh, you don't know this and this. You're not a real fan. You get out of here." Like I get talked down to a lot in fandom spaces cuz I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Star Wars, the greatest films ever made, but sometimes the fan base to be toxic. It's like, Marvel too. I'm a huge Marvel fan. Like
Yeah.
and you got so many people who are like, you got the people who are like, who just think like women have worse takes on things. They don't like even listen to the opinion of a woman in that space or their takes, because they're like, well, you haven't seen this film or you haven't read this comic, so your take's invalid, or like you're not a real fan, so it doesn't count. And you have a lot of like policing and a lot of like gatekeeping,
Oh
and
yeah.
it can get so toxic, and that's with like any fandom. You have fans that are like so intense about it that they block off other people just because maybe they don't know as much like trivia, or maybe because they're sadly a certain gender or a certain identity or a certain race, because I've seen that in fandom spaces too, and it is incredibly toxic. And it sadly happens so much in film and TV and media.
Hmm.
And it's just like a sad part that I've had to like just, okay, screw them, like just don't take it to heart and keep loving what you love, because that's what's important. You may not be as, maybe into it as other people, or you may not know as much as other people, but it's what makes you happy and it's what you like. So that's all it takes to be a fan, in my opinion, on something.
Straight up. And like, it's so hard to differentiate between I'm a fan for myself and I want to be a fan in a public space. And sometimes you have to just be a fan for yourself, because when you're a fan in a public space as a woman, it's you're suddenly not even arguing about, even if you read all the comic books, you immediately get attacked for how you look. And you're like, that wasn't even part of the discussion. And you're like, you have to do a full set of makeup to get on TikTok to make an opinion about a Thor movie. Whereas, like, some guy with greasy hair is filming half up his neck like this, and they're not getting
Yeah.
the same problem. So, like, yes, society makes it difficult. And there's definitely films I've had bad experiences around because of dudes that I had to then go back to much later because I couldn't enjoy it at the time. And they were great films. So, like, men, women, people of the earth, when you're trying to get somebody to watch something, do not yell at them.
Literally. And there's people like, well, if I like watch a film with someone's like, "Oh, I hope you react in this way," or this is the greatest scene, isn't it? It's like, don't try to influence how I like see things. I'm gonna like watch it in my own way. And sometimes it's like totally innocent. Like sometimes it's not always like from a place of hate. It's from like, "Oh, you need." I was like, "No, no, no. I'm gonna react to it how I react to it, and that's how it is." And also too, like I go to like a lot of conventions and stuff, like in public fandom spaces, and holy shit, like the female cosplayers, like we always put in like a lot of, yeah, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
And a lot of work and a lot of money goes into that. That is a real skill and an art, and people just want to trash, trash, trash and break down. And you're like, girl, shut the fuck up. That's months of work.
Literally.
And they're almost every single cosplay I've ever seen, I've been like, are beautiful and amazing. Like, yeah. Yeah. The good thing is that the other women in the fandom do seem to be like trying to help each other, trying to,
Yeah.
like you'll find your niche. It's like you said, you want to find people in your community who want to uphold each other. You find your Joshes who just don't want to be the head, who want to show everybody else, and then you're in a good space, and then you can start watching movies.
I love that.
So, before we wrap this up, we're moving on towards our final cup of questions. We did determine what kind of your, I guess, least and favorite scenes were. Your favorite scene was in the restaurant, and your least favorite scene was pretty much everybody's least favorite scene.
Yes.
Did, did you have a favorite performance? I guess it was Uma, right?
I think so, but also Samuel L. Jackson, I thought his performance
Mhm.
was really, really well done. And his character I really liked.
With the three main actors, with John Travolta, Uma Thurman, and Samuel L. Jackson, since you're coming at this movie feeling like they're established actors you've already seen so many times, because they are, what are the three roles that you associate each of those most with? So, like, when you're seeing this film, you're seeing them as.
With Samuel L. Jackson, because I'm a Marvel fan, I see him as Nick Fury for sure.
Okay.
I see him as that most, even though he's been in countless other things. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
such a Marvel fan.
absolutely.
Like John Travolta, definitely Grease
Yeah.
is the one I think of because I grew up watching that as a musical, kid. Uma Thurman, I haven't seen as much with her, but I think of her Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Also, too, I saw watching this, I was like, oh my god, Maya Hawke sounds just like her. I was like blown away because I've seen so many movies with Maya Hawke in it, and I was just like, oh my god, she sounds just like her mother.
So much. So thank you for bringing that up. I forgot we should bring that up, especially because there's this scenes where she's like leaning into the intercom microphone, and it's a tight shot just on her lips. And they probably did this because it's a reference and not just blatantly stealing. But in the last season of Stranger Things, Maya Hawke's character is a radio host, and they did so many graphic match shots of her leaning in and talking in the very first episode, and the lips move the same, the voice is the same, the inflections are the same. There was one point where I said to my husband, did she get any of Ethan Hawke? Because it feels like she only got Uma Thurman.
Yeah, it was crazy just how much she resembles her mom, and her vocal tone, her the way, like,
Huh?
it's exact. It's like I could close my eyes and I couldn't probably distinguish the two. And someone who's watched Stranger Things since I was like 10 years old, like, just seeing that was like really cool.
Yeah, it was so stunning because it's the first time I've seen this movie since Maya Hawke has been an actress that we've seen on television. So that was just very striking for me. Bill Pullman's kid is another kid where every time I see him in
Yeah.
something, I'm just like, they done cloned your father. There was no genetic material from the mom. They just cloned your father. It's freaking
Also,
me
too,
out.
I'm so excited to see them both in Spaceballs too.
No.
That's gonna be amazing. I'm so, as a diehard Spaceballs fan, I'm just like hyped. I don't care. I don't care. Everyone's like, oh, it's a sequel. Da, da, da. I zip it. Zip it. I'm gonna go in theaters and I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, the whole essence of this show is you don't really know until you know. The only time I condone blanket like I'm not gonna seize are when like, oh yeah, all of the funding from that goes someplace horrible, or all of the people did so. Like, if it's truly a bad organization to give money to, still pirate the movie later on, like that kind of
Ahoy,
thing.
matey.
Ahoy matey.
Or just wait. I a lot of movies, because movie going is a little expensive. If I don't really, really want to see it in theaters, I will wait till it goes to streaming. Because it literally goes to streaming within like 2 months, not even sometimes.
Yes.
And because like I have a decent sized TV, like in my living room. We all watch together. We have surround sound, so I'm like it's sometimes because like I went to the movie theaters alone a couple times, got small popcorn. That was it. It was like over $20. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is expensive. If you go, like, so, and I use, like, the Cinemark app. I have, like, the bonus points, the discounts and everything, and it was still, like, $20. And I was like, that's, people used to get into this shit for, like, a nickel or so, Like, I can't comprehend. Like, my parents, like, talked about, yeah, it was, like, dime theater back in West Springfield. It used to be, like, a dime to get it.
Oh,
It's
man,
insane.
that would have been great. I did find out recently that sometimes it is cheaper to buy the like movie popcorn tin. I got the Castle Grayskull for the recent He-Man movie because it was the same price. It came with a large popcorn and soda free, and the container itself was $19. So I was like, I think that's actually $1 cheaper, and I leave with a giant plastic
Wow.
toy. I'll be taking my popcorn in a castle, please.
Yeah.
It did mean that I had to go to I walked into Obsession with like the weirdest collection of no one told me anything about that movie before I walked into that movie, and let me tell you, I was just like, this would be a good movie to eat during. It was not.
I love them. I literally just watched Obsession a few days ago, actually, for the first time. And it is one of my favorite horror movies now. It is so I loved it. But I'm just like picturing you with the giant castle just like that's too
Shaped
good.
like a skull. Yeah, that's a great movie. It's a traumatizing movie. It's kind of like a
Oh
Requiem for a
yeah.
Dream where I'm hesitant to tell people to watch that movie. I think there's a lot of people I know for whom that is
It's
not
yeah.
an okay experience. That being said, Game. I gotta recognize the game that put that movie together. That is, whew.
God, yeah. It's crazy to also just like I related so heavily to Nikki, and I've been in that kind of circumstance like before, and just the terrifying horror, like if magic was real, this is the reality of it, and how men would use it for their own gain without even realizing it, how much they hurt other people. And it's just that's the real horror, is that Bear thinks he's the good guy the whole time.
There's so many
And
guys who will say that
it's
too
so many
after the
guys like
movie.
that.
Ugh. People who watch that movie and miss the point is like, oh, well, at least they made it easy, so now you know to skip those people.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I saw like I've never seen this creator, but there was like a popular like YouTuber who does like reviews and stuff who like the whole time was like defending Bear and stuff. And I would just like I couldn't believe it. Like someone with, millions of followers like say like did you watch the same movie? Like and it's crazy. That's another thing. Like so many people will watch a movie. It's like okay, so like American Psycho. So many people will watch that movie and idolize oh my
Christian Bale's
gosh,
character.
Christian Bale's character there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Idolize him and think he's the protagonist. Like, well, yeah, he is, but he's not a good guy. That's the whole point, is that he represents toxic masculinity. He represents those kind of men. And I just think it's so ironic that it's those same kind of men that idolize him
Mm-hmm.
and like think the same way as him. And
It's
it's crazy.
I I think that that's a line that this movie walks as well, because especially with the inclusion of the N-word being said so many times and by both white and black characters, and even Samuel L. Jackson said that during filming he asked like maybe we should contextualize or bring back some of the use of the N-word, and later on he does defend what they did, because when white characters use that word, it's because we're supposed to know they are bad people. They are not cool. What they're saying is not cool. Do not emulate this. This is a bullshit person. Like, bad character. However, it sounds cool. And so sometimes people will still quote Jimmy, or sometimes people will want to quote parts of this movie because it's fun to say. And you're like, you fucking missed the point of why that character is in this movie saying that.
Yeah. I did find it crazy though, like Quentin Tarantino also I did not think his acting was that good. I'm gonna say that right now.
What? What? He's not.
I know. Crazy take.
He's,
But also too, like it's just like you're writing this and you write a character for yourself and you have them unnecessarily say the N-word like 5 times in a row. Why? Like it is I cringed so hard. I was like
the character he actually wrote for himself still says the N-word, but he didn't get to play that character. The character he wrote for himself is actually the drug dealer who Eric Stoltz plays. And for practical reasons, he needed to be behind the camera for that scene because it's considered like the big scene. It's the end of that story.
yeah.
It's the arc right there. And so his friend, Robert Rodriguez, who's a director you probably know and have heard of, done tons of mariachi, tons of different things, directed the scenes where Tarantino is in front of the camera, and they had to make them less. And he had to be the character Jimmy because that was just a smaller scene. Both characters still say the N-word, so it doesn't really matter in my mind. He still chose, like, I could be this guy and I'll make it kind of sound cool. And that's that line with Tarantino where you have to be like, I really liked the experience, or I had a good time watching this film, or I thought that that was well written or executed. The same thing like we're talking about Obsession. I want to recognize the cinematography, the everything that goes into making Obsession a great movie, while totally validating the fact that I know people who will watch this and have a bad time.
Yeah.
So
Oh
like,
god, that movie,
yeah.
and I recognize like Obsession is not for everyone. I know people will go and watching that and be like, I didn't like that at all. That was so good. Like that's also too. But I've like grown so accustomed to horror and stuff, and I love when people take an idea, flip it on its side, and do something new with it. And I really think that's what this movie did. And I thought it was just so well shot. The acting, like again, these no-name actors delivering such an incredible performance.
Washed up. Yeah.
It's yeah. I just thought Obsession was just amazing. Like I instantly was like, this is gonna become like a horror classic in like 20, 30 years.
Nikki's performance is amazing. It's a real
Yeah.
shame. People are talking about it. It's not gonna get nominated for anything. It's not. It's too long ago. It came out too long ago for right now, and it's still not even close to award season. It's not gonna get nominated for anything. But it should, because it's
It should.
genuinely a good performance, down to the body acting is quite good in that as well.
It's also too, like, watching it, I picked up on, like, so much the subtle shifts when she, like, sees her reflection or, like, gets that sense where you can tell Wish Nikki is different from, like, real Nikki, and when she switches from either or and has those moments, and I think it's just so incredibly, like, performed and acted, and it's not forced, it looks so natural and so scary and unsettling. She has the horror look down, like, she is, like, a professional with that. It's crazy.
So this kind of brings it to like a hypothetical question here. We've got Curry Baker. I always want to say Curry Barker. Curry Baker directed Obsession. We really like it's come out. It's hit the zeitgeist. Everybody feels it. It's a movie we're all talking about with great performances. 10, 15 years from now, Curry just can't shut the fuck up, and he is not really a good person. And he says a lot of stuff that you just generally disagree with when he's just saying stuff. How does that make you feel about the film after the fact?
I think it's just my perspective of looking at it through an actress's or a director's or a writer's eye, like thinking about the production of it. But the actual movie itself, I do because like with Pulp Fiction, I did try to separate the art from the artist. I
Mhm.
realized Quentin Tarantino is problematic, but I did go into the story like just looking to judge it based off of what I was seeing. And I did, and I still wasn't a huge fan of it, but I tried to like separate the art from the artist. I really did. And I felt like I'm able to do that for a lot of different films because there's a lot of problematic films that I've seen back
Mm.
in the day or made by problematic people that of which I love. I love those films. And I'm not going to like say that I'm going to stop loving those films
Yeah.
because they're good films. So probably the same thing is like I love Obsession. I think I'm always going to love Obsession. Will it change the view of like certain scenes, like knowing like what happened behind the scenes, like if something were to come out or whatever? Probably, but I'm still going to always like that movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting way because you're coming into this as an angle of can I separate the art from the artist without any idea about the art? But there's always also the other angle from where people who already have seen Pulp Fiction are, which is like, what do you do with a film you really like when the creation of it becomes problematic? When it both launches a beautiful resurgence of independent film and gives power to some of the most heinous men in the industry for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
It
obviously no
it's
specific
crazy.
answer, right? Like it just is.
No, it's just it's so crazy. Like I love films. I love being in movies,
Mhm.
making movies, watching movies. I realize a lot of things in the film industry are just fucked. Like I can acknowledge that and I know that there's a lot that we don't know that goes on behind the scenes. But you still try your best to just get sucked into the story, just to watch a movie and just leave that at the front door a lot of times and just let the creativity flow when it comes to watching a movie and getting inspired by that movie or just digesting that movie. And it's a hard thing to do. Oh my god, like I'm like I watch movies like, oh, I know what happened in the scene, like this is really wrong, like I know what happened behind the scene, but you really want to try to just separate the art from the artist the best you can.
Yeah, and just to admit that it's not black or white. We didn't
No,
get just the bad from this. We also got a lot of good from this. So I it's impossible to just make like a blanket statement about what you would or wouldn't do. It's just these weird gray feels that we get when you have to talk about a movie that's this old.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So, overall, would you say that you enjoyed this film? Would you ever watch it again? Scale of 5 stars kind of thing. What would you summarize your feelings about this film?
I would probably not watch this film again.
Hmm.
I think after this conversation, though, I can appreciate more aspects of it that I may not have caught on like a first time watch through.
Hmm.
And kind of realizing now where Tarantino was coming from at certain aspects, but still personally, it wasn't a movie for me. And there were a lot of things that I myself just did not like about it as like a personal preference thing. And yeah, it is problematic. But also too, I don't like a lot of senseless action, like violence, senseless gore, senseless swear, like, and I wasn't a huge fan of the plot structure as well. So I think overall, I probably give it a 1 star out of 5.
That's a strong dislike.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
really didn't. I like movies where I enjoy the time watching them, or I can appreciate. Like, I did not enjoy watching it. I did not feel good. Again, certain movies aren't always meant to make you feel good, but
Obsession is definitely on that line. Yeah, like you're
yeah.
not supposed to feel
But
good.
I just, at the end of it, I just was like, man, I really didn't like much about this movie at all.
I'm definitely curious because you say that you really love the slasher genre, which is wildly
Yeah.
accused of being senselessly violent.
Oh God. Yeah.
What is the difference between that senseless violence that you like versus this senseless violence?
I think with this, I felt like I don't love all slashers. There's some that I'm just like,
I mean,
this
Scream
doesn't move
Scream
the
gets
story forward.
gets widely accused of the same thing.
Like,
Scream is
I
definitely a
actually,
senselessly violent film.
yeah, but like, I don't like Terrifier. That
Yeah,
I feel like is
that's
senseless.
torture pornography. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think that this film gets anywhere near like Hostel
I'm trying.
or
I
Serbian
think
Film. Yeah.
just also too wasn't just the violence and gore. It was the mix of constantly having just so many terrible characters do so many terrible things with like very little like succession to the plot, like very little, like, I felt like I was just watching these stories of these terrible people doing terrible things.
Mm,
Cool. But I didn't feel the significance of it as some other people might feel.
yeah.
And with slashers, like, you have like the tropes and stuff. I feel like it's a little more like grounded, and I feel like it's a bit more, and it depends on the slasher you're watching. Some of them are just utter bullshit, and some of them are so bad it's kind of fun. Like, turn off your brain, Sharknado type stuff. But with the slasher genre, I feel like it's so much different than this kind of genre. Also too, because it's rooted in like a lot of different tropes and a lot of different aspects. Like, if I'm watching a Friday the 13th movie, you got like, it's good versus evil. There's like, like already, you kind of know a little bit the outcome. Like, that good's gonna kind of defeat evil. And I don't always like movies where good defeats evil, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's completely two different things,
Mm-hmm.
where it's hard to compare it just based off of the violence and gore. It's two very different genres.
Yeah, and I think that maybe the context that you have with slasher, where like you get all the references, you get all the films that it's building off of because you have that
Hmm.
vocabulary already, is what is missing. Like you don't have the film pulp knowledge
Yeah.
vocabulary, so that makes it feel like it's missing. Whereas if that is in there when you're talking about slasher films, you're like, oh yeah, that's there because that's from that. Whereas just like
Hmm.
here, that's there. So like yeah, perhaps the context is necessary to allow for that to feel
Yeah.
less that way. And again, like because this isn't the first time you're seeing a film where like it doesn't have a chronology that's straightforward, it doesn't have a story where good versus evil and evil loses, it doesn't have that freshness of being like finally a movie where that doesn't happen. So like yeah, those are interesting.
Yeah, it was a tough question. I really had to think about that. I was like, huh, yeah, that is like good to bring up too, because yeah, the genres are really so different, when you think about structure wise. And also too, like, I really haven't seen a lot of those classic actiony like type Pulp Fiction type movies made back in the 80s and 90s, that might have like,
70s and 50s.
sorry, 70s, sorry, a little earlier.
This
But
movie
I
is
really,
from the 90s, so it's referencing
yes,
older movies.
older movies.
Yeah.
The older movies that's inspired by. So yeah, I think I definitely would have a different perspective if I came from loving those older movies and then seeing Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I I would only reason I would say watch Pulp Fiction again is if you could get a version of the cut where it pop-up videos you. It shows you like this is this scene is this scene, this quote is from this quote, just to like as a like, oh, that's fascinating from a history point of view, that's the context that I'm missing kind of experience. But like that's only if you want to take that ride, if you're feeling that kind of
I
flavor.
think I was thinking of actually watching like an Easter egg video because like there's a ton of like YouTube videos that will like point out things. I was like actually thinking about watching that after just to see like all the things that I missed and maybe things that like I've already seen and didn't even know that they were referencing. Like
Yeah.
because who knows? I have seen some random movies that maybe I don't remember entirely, but from like where you're coming from, it sounds like it makes like references like a lot in that movie.
Yeah, a lot of them. I would probably say that like Kiss Me Deadly and The Killing, because it gets its nonlinear crime structure from that, are probably like the two biggest ones. But I would probably just tell you to even go see Eight and a Half or Breathless, or like there's a whole new wave cinema experience that you can have that's completely tangential, where you'll get a lot of the visuals without having very much of the pulp. And I like you're either gonna love Fellini and Godard, or you're gonna hate them. And so that's totally fine because they're kind of pretentious sometimes. So it's just a flavor to get to have. So I do think that Pulp Fiction would be a great springboard to some stuff. But like, you don't have to watch it again in and of its context. If you didn't like it the first time, I don't think a repeat viewing would change that for you. So if people are listening to this and being like, she just needs to watch it again, like, no, she watched it. Okay.
Watched it thoroughly. Like I was the whole time like honed in like
Yeah.
okay, let's digest this a little bit. And I'm sure I'd pick up even more the second, even third time watching it. But again, like that movie was just not my cup of tea. And it's good that I gave it a chance and I'm so glad I actually did finally watch it cuz it's been on my list for like forever. So I'm glad, I finally, got it out of the way and I learned so much like through this cuz like
Yeah.
originally you did convince me to bump it up half a star. Originally it was at half a star. So it's at 1 star now in my
Will,
head.
as a good friend to you and a fellow female filmmaker, discourage you from rating it on Letterboxd at that rate. Not that I'm saying you should change your rating. You can log that you watched it so you have it on your data point. But unless you want to get chased down by people in the comments, I wouldn't give it that 1 star rating publicly on Letterboxd because there are mad trolls. You'll see I'll watch a film, there's no heart and there's no rating. That means I didn't like it and I don't.
I already posted it.
It's your heart. No, I can't save
I was
you.
like, oh shit.
I cannot save you. They're gonna
No,
come
it's okay.
for you.
It's the consequences of my own actions. I am aware. This is like what I'm talking about when I'm unapologetically myself. Let them come. Let them come at me. I don't care. This is my opinion. This is how I think. And you know what's so funny? I was actually looking through like the reviews of Pulp Fiction and stuff, and there were actually a lot of other like half stars. For every like 5 stars, there was like 1 half star that was like a very similar perspective. It was a female woman like in film who's a film, critic, film addict, loves film, but like, hey, I finally watched this after so many people like had a very same perspective that I did. So it's not uncommon, I don't think, and I think there's a lot more of people like me than the film world would like to acknowledge.
Especially as we get further and further from the point in time when this film is made, because it's becoming very clear to me that like I didn't really consume pulp novels or pulp movies. They were just around and I wound up consuming them because they were there. And as you get older and older, this is probably less and less the case. So this film might speak less and less to people. I do hope that the aspects that we've lauded about allowing your actors time in a monologue to really show, about going against industry standards, about breaking. There was even a like style guide to the way and structure in which films were allowed to be made at that time and get greenlit, where like if by page blank X hasn't happened, this film needs to be rewritten. And so for this film to say, I'm not doing that, cool. That was really cool. Then it is less and less so now when you get crazy stuff being made like obsession and backrooms and things like that are really breaking. Even Jane Schoenbrunn, I saw the TV Glow. Like there's some real interesting things that are breaking narrative structure and expectation that can kind of make this feel like less of a strong flavor. So I'm proud of you for doing what I wouldn't do. I have opinions. It's just sometimes I don't have the energy to have them so
No,
frequently.
I totally get that. People are exhausting.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
replying to I just delete them. Like if I like cuz I do make TikToks from time to time. I'll get like stuff. I'm like, "Oh, delete. We're not going to acknowledge that. Nope. Delete."
But it's still a small amount of emotional energy to receive a comment like that and have to look at it and delete it. So, that being said.
No, I totally get it.
Yeah. Is there a human for whom you would recommend watch Pulp Fiction?
Like who I'd give this recommendation.
Yeah. Is there anyone you would say, like, you should watch Pulp Fiction? Or you
I
just
think
wouldn't recommend anyone would
I'd
watch it?
recommend it to someone who's studying cinematography because I think they use a lot of amazing elements that have been repeated throughout history. Like I feel like this set a standard for the way things are shot and like was revolutionary to changing the structure as not just a basic plot. Like I can acknowledge that. So someone who's looking to see like a classic example of that, sure. Yeah. But story-wise, I don't think I'd recommend this.
Which is hilarious. The only Oscar it won was for Best Original Screenplay.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy.
Rough.
Again, I can acknowledge like I think the character had a lot of great shining moments.
Mm-hmm.
I do think like again those monologues were very well written. I will say that. But just as a whole, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't walk away thinking like, wow, this is the greatest movie of all. I didn't walk away even close to that.
I don't think any film I've ever watched that was been told to me to be the greatest film of ever time. That's not a do not say that to people. That's never going to be the same. Is there a litmus of a person where, like, if somebody who came at you and said, "Should I watch Pulp Fiction?" where you would say, "No, I know that person won't like this movie."
How most people, I think, most of my friends I surround myself with would probably not like this movie. A good majority of them, except for maybe a few of my filmmaker friends who have probably already seen it, most likely. But most of my friends, I would not. I would be like, don't watch this.
Okay, all right. I'm just gonna have to be surprised by that. Okay, yeah. Do you feel like is an inherent gender bias? Like, do you think it would be harder for women or non-binary people to want to watch this movie? Yeah.
I think that's a definitely, yeah.
Although a small tangent, the person in the scene where first time we hear Ezekiel 25:17 said to the guy who's eating the kahuna burger who winds up biting the big kahuna, there's a person in the bathroom that nobody knows about who winds up coming out with a gun. That is one of the Arquettes. It's one of the Arquettes. I can't remember her name now. I'm totally forgetting her first name because there's so many freaking Arquettes. Wonderful transgender actress now, and this was one of her first roles.
Oh,
So,
wow.
like, you get to see her in one of her first roles. It's only a couple of seconds. She's one of the Arquette kids. Look for her. That's the like
Yeah,
some positive to say, but yeah.
little represent for like 5 seconds and yeah. But again, I think there's different lived experiences, different people who have experienced different things, different ways that people of different genders and identities would view this and see this. And the thing is, a lot of guys watch this and don't get the right takeaway from it. We discussed this. They like it simply because of all the badass action, violence, and gore, which is good. It's fine if you like it because of that. But then they'll take that and they'll internalize it, and then they think, oh, this is how I want to be. Like they'll see it as like something they want as a piece of themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
that's actually really fascinating to say. Because I'm kind of thinking about like Tarantino as a filmmaker overall, like why all the violence when telling your stories, and like there's almost so like if we're looking at Django Unchained or Inglourious Bastards, where we have these stories that are completely fictionalized representations of historical events, where the characters that are usually the victims in these representations are being given the chance to have revenge, and it's very violent, their revenge and their choice, and so it winds up becoming like a symbol of the historical events full arc. And like if that if that's present in Pulp Fiction, it might be missing in a way that it can be totally seen. But that idea of like, yes, this all of this is violent and terrible, but I'm trying to present it in an arc where you see that it resolves over time in a way that is powerful for the people who are being marginalized. And because this is like the second in his films, it gets stronger as a flavor going into his work and is a little bit less here. I don't really feel like I would say I saw that at all in Reservoir Dogs because I'm not sure it's there. But maybe that's kind of what we're hinting at here.
Possibly. Well, also too, I love writing. I've written a lot of different works. Again, most of them haven't been made into anything yet. I like to go off, like, yeah, I've written things with violence in them. I've written horror things with violence in them, but I've also written comedies, heartfelt stuff. I've dabbled in romance. Like, again, certain people, they have a certain genre, they stick to it, but just that's like the thing in common with like all of Tarantino's films is like just the senseless violence, the constant like it reflects a little bit on the person who writes them.
Mm-hmm. I guess my argument is that he's trying to use the bricolage, the garbage, the violence to make a larger comment on the context of the violence that can get
Mhm.
lost. So it's like, can you even use something that's shitty to begin with to make something that's good? And like, can you, because like when you're making a film like perfect, like a 12 Years a Slave, versus say Django Unchained, you can either show black people enduring the violence and persevering, or you can make a completely fictionalized version that shows the like after that they take power and come back, and in a way that didn't actually happen. So like they're using the violence as a form of retroactive power.
Yeah. It sucks that a lot of people don't see it that way. They don't see it as the perspective of this is how we're showing perseverance, this is how we're showing
Mm-hmm.
change, and how these people are bad, and like, and some of them are redeeming themselves, or some of them are trying to get out of away from the violence.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just see like at its face value, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that where the harm comes in with these films is that a lot of people don't have the, I shouldn't say IQ, but like maybe the emotional ability in their head to like think rationally about what's being shown to them, and that they just internalize a lot of this violence and aggression, and they think, oh, it's so cool, like I want to be just like Tarantino, let me make an action film where I torture everyone and like kill everyone, and it's boom 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 boom, violence, violence. Like they don't see the reason
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah, the media literacy can often be
Yeah.
at a low, which is another great question for content creators, media creators, film creators. Do you create for the audience, or do you create for yourself? And should art be allowed to exist if people can use it dangerously through misinterpretation?
Yeah. That is such a huge question in this day and age, and I think it's such a huge dilemma. I know as a writer, I'll come up with an idea that's fully like mine and myself, but I will always keep in mind my audience. I'll write like maybe my first draft without limitation, like, what I want, but then I will like be like, okay, let me look at it, and I'll have someone else read it. Like I'll have my mom read it. Like my mom's my best critique. She's an English teacher, so she is very good at like reviewing writing and actually giving helpful criticism, so that I can take into mind, okay, how can I combine my ideas with like audience's like views and expectations sorted to get the best of both worlds without having it be too, just me and just everything that I'm, is that balance I think that people need to find.
That's funny. I'm a big fuck the audience writer.
Yeah.
Having written several pieces and talked to the audience after having made them, you are always going to lose someone. I had someone watch my first film and ask me why two of the characters, like, why is the dad doing that to the girl? And I'm like, they're not related in any way. They don't look like each other. They never say mom, dad. There's just, how the fuck did you get that? And it was because they thought it was based on a book that they had read. Like your audience is gonna be I obviously there's no right answer and everybody's gonna be different, but I am a
Yeah.
big fuck the audience. They're so goddamn dumb. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Like a lot of simple like if they don't understand that something, that's on them. But I also want to make sure it is somewhat so cohesive because like a lot of times it can make sense in my head. It can like really, but then if I give it to a few people to read who I know are trusted sources who also have very similar like mindsets and like things like what the hell is this, I can't understand, like or this isn't as good of an ending, it needs to have a bigger impact or something like that.
Well, you
I
ain't
take it
changing
into
my ending. You ain't changing my
I
ending. Get away
I
from
take it
here.
into consideration. I don't always change it because sometimes I'm like, no, this is perfect. But then sometimes, depending on what criticism they give me or what feedback they give me, I will be like, okay, how can I take that? Not necessarily do exactly what they suggested, but like take that and pair it with my own thinking and make something new that's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely getting any kind of feedback is super helpful. I do find that sometimes people who want to change the ending of your story want to have written a different story. Like, that's cool. Go write that story. That's not this story. I tend to also write with the end. Like, I'll know the beginning point and I know the ending point, and mostly it's
Yeah.
getting from there. Is that how you do it too?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
will like before I even start writing the script, I will make like a layout scene by scene. And sometimes the scenes change, but it gives me a beginning point, a middle point, and an end point.
Hmm.
And I didn't start doing that until like a few scripts ago, and it's been revolutionary for me because there was this one script I was writing. I was so keen on the idea, but I wrote myself into a hole and I had no ending, and I was like, oh, damn, I like Stephen King's myself because like he's done that before. Like he says like don't do that, don't do that to yourself, and I did, and it happens, it really does. And also too, like I've rethought how I want to make the ending not 100% different, but how I can make it have a bigger impact so that it ties more things together. It is like rethinking like the little things because I have the structure, but it's just like how do I incorporate like elements like foreshadowing? How do I incorporate cinematic elements? What like because I will picture the shots in my head as I'm typing it out. I will picture locations in my head, practical things like how are we gonna actually make this stunt work? How can we do that? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's what's cool to have the perspective of a writer who's also been on sets before and like is an actress or like is a director and can like kind of see it from different perspectives.
Oh my God. There's definitely a difference between writing a script for, say, like an independent budget versus like a pie in the sky script where you're like, we're going to sell this and somebody else is going to figure out how to make this happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of nice, though, to be able to be like, does this have to happen in space? Could it happen in an elevator instead?
Well, it's so nice too because like a lot of these big budget writers are like, oh, they'll just CGI it. They'll just do that. And like, well, we can't. How can we make this practical? Like, I have this short film idea that I actually think I'm gonna shoot in the next month or so with some friends. Just like a quick like day or two of
Nice.
filming where
Nice.
I have like these it's like a burnt angel wing silhouette. I was like, oh wait, I can just use spray paint on my lawn and make it look realistic enough and then put some like smoke effects in post. Boom, that's gonna be fun. Like, thinking about things before actually like going to do them and getting on set, like, well, how the hell are we gonna do this?
Definitely don't get on set before you've had that thought. Well, this has been a really awesome conversation. Thank you so much for taking a chance on this film and bringing a perspective to us and talking about your craft and everything like that. Is there final thought, last thing you want to say before we cut out.
I promise I don't hate all like film bro best ranked movies. I always give a movie a chance. So I have some wild takes, but they're not all negative towards films. I have some good film takes, I promise.
Is your letterbox handle the same as your Instagram handle?
I think so. Let me
We'll
check. I'll
put
get
it in
back
the
to you on that.
liner notes.
I'm
But
pretty sure it's the same.
if you want to see Lindsey's review, 1-star review, the half-star review that I bumped up to 1 star, you
Haven't
can
done it yet. I bumped it up in my mind.
go over to the letterbox, see what other hot takes we've got, and see what other movies might be getting 5 stars from Lindsey, and to give her a follow because it never hurts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Movie Runtime, Katie, as always. So if we're talking about liking and following, like, follow this, comment on the bottom, say something, yell at us, let us know you're there. We are about to approach episode 50. So yeah, definitely know me if you let me know if you're listening. We had a lot of people talk back on the Schindler's List one, so that was really nice to get to hear all of your experiences. A lot of people wanted to tell me what it was like when they saw the movie actually in theaters. I can't believe how many people walked into that movie not knowing it was about the Holocaust, Lindsey.
Oh wow.
People just like, I watched whatever movie, I brought popcorn and a soda, what's this about? Not good.
Don't never forget that experience.
No. So, if you want to tell me about when you saw Pulp Fiction for the very first time, hit those comments. I'd love to hear it. And again, thank you for tuning in.